Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to recap the status hearing that just took place in the case of R. Kelly. And I should stop saying in the case of R. Kelly, is actually Robert Sylvester Kelly who is on trial here. And so this hearing, if you guys haven't been following, was regarding Steve Greenberg and Mike Leonard's motion to withdraw from the case, 2 months before trial is supposed to start. And when I tell you guys this is a hot ghetto mess, okay, I was on this call like clutching my pearls and looking for my glasses, okay, so that I could take these notes. So there's definitely some infighting that has been going on behind the scenes. It looks as though Greenberg and Leonard believe that Nicole and Thomas Farinella, Nicole blank Becker and Thomas Farinella, have pretty much gone behind their back and undermined their authority or their position in the case to sway Mr. Kelly into dropping them as counsel and then taking Nicole and Thomas on as the lead counsel. And so you guys know that Greenberg, in some of the statements he's made via social media, has stated that he doesn't feel that Nicole and Thomas are capable of leading this case. And after this call, I'm inclined to kind of believe Steve Greenberg that they are not prepared, they are not ready. That doesn't mean that I support Greenberg being on the case. I really don't have an issue with Mike Leonard because he seems to have been very professional and very much above board this entire time. And so I think his involvement in withdrawing from the case is the fact that Steve Greenberg brought him on. So Steve Greenberg is responsible for him getting paid. And so if he is unsure how he's going to get paid to continue on this case, then he probably would just like to, bow out gracefully and move along. And I really could see the judge allowing Mike Leonard to stay on the case or requiring that Mike Leonard stay on the case and letting Greenberg go on about his business. But I felt that Nicole, Thomas, and Steve were a bit unprofessional in the way that they were acting on the call. Mike Leonard was the only one that really had any form of decorum. And so I wrote these notes, and I have a hard time understanding my own writing. So bear with me as I go into what exactly is taking place. So the call began, and we did get to hear, once again, Mr. Kelly was on the call. He said good morning to the judge very respectfully, as he always does. This was one of the calls that probably the first call that I've listened to where she actually asked his opinion, asked if he had anything to say on his behalf. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. So let's just go along my bullet points here. And so Steve Greenberg said that basically he had been sending information to Mr. Kelly at the MCC and he was not getting a response. I think at some point he actually went down to the MCC. And that's when Mr. Kelly refused to visit with him. And then he went on to talk about one of the counsels having mental health issues that prohibits them from being able to communicate effectively when standing before the courts. And we know that he is referring to Thomas Farinella on that end because we saw him in action during the appeals hearing that they had before, I believe it was the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. He was stuttering having problems getting his thoughts out. So he was definitely talking about him. At this point, Judge Donnelly intervened and said that, we're not going to do this on this call. We're not going to be belittling one another and doing this tit for tat. And she recommended that they put their concerns in a motion, filed that motion with the court with all of the details, all the specifics. And just to backtrack for a second, when she opened up the call, she did state that Steve Greenberg had not sent her information or details as to why he wanted to withdraw from the case. He said something about he filed a separate motion on yesterday morning, and she has not seen that motion. And then I also want to say that, the prosecution was on this call, and so I'm sure they are loving this. They are really happy to see this team falling apart and are going to use it to work in their benefit once the trial starts. Judge Donnelly says that, she needs to regain control, put everything in a motion. She will look over the motion, and then they will, move forward from there. So even after she put that out there, that she wanted them to put everything in writing and submit the motion, Greenberg, was still trying to state his case and, went on to say that Mr. Kelly refused to speak with him twice, refused to meet with him. And basically, he still thinks that he should be the one that is in control of this case. Leonard spoke up and basically said that, he was fine with putting everything in writing and filing a motion with the court. And that was pretty much all that he had to say on the matter. Then Thomas Farinella spoke up and basically said that Mr. Kelly terminated Mr. Greenberg and Mr. Leonard, and that he filed a motion of termination last week. And then the motion to withdraw, was sent by Greenberg and Leonard as a response to Mr. Kelly stating that they were fired from the case, and that he felt that it was within Mr. Kelly's constitutional rights to terminate counsel if that is what he wished to do. So Judge Donnelly spoke up and said that she hasn't received anything from Mr. Kelly in forms of a motion or his request, for new counsel. Greenberg stated that he received a letter from someone claiming that they have the power of attorney over Mr. Kelly's affairs. He did not say who that person was. He didn't say whether he didn't know the person or he did know the person, just that he had received this letter. Judge Donnelly, in response to that, asked Mr. Kelly, was it his desire to change counsel? And he basically said yes, that he, wants to change attorneys and that he wants Nicole Becker and Thomas Farinella to now be his lead counsel. There was no mention of any new attorneys coming on board or anything like that. Nicole spoke up and basically stated that Mr. Kelly asked them to be, his main attorneys, and she pointed out that they were not asking for an adjournment with the case, that they are prepared to move forward, that there are no outstanding issues. And so Mr. Kelly basically stated that he would be glad to speak. And as he was getting ready to talk, Judge Donnelly jumped in and said that before, she could let him speak, she needed him to be clear, that anything that he states is going to be on the record, and whether or not he has spoken to his attorneys about anything that he is about to say on this call. And so he stated that yes, he had spoken to his attorney and he was ready to speak, but Judge Donnelly was very uncomfortable with this and basically did not go back to Mr. Kelly for the remainder of the call. So he never did get his opportunity to say what it is that he wanted to say. Nicole spoke up and said that Mr. Kelly had spoken to her and that she did know what he was about to say. But Judge Donnelly was like, let's stop here. Let's not go any further, because I can see this thing derailing and going left really quickly. And so that was the end of the portion with Mr. Kelly actually being able to speak. And so Judge Donnelly immediately went into what was going on with the case, where they are as far as meetings and hearings. And then she started reading off the calendar as far as when the jury questionnaires are going out, how they are to be returned. She talked about their last status hearing. When are they going to start, sending in their motions, to object to some of these charges, the dates that they have to be returned. And I believe it's July 26th for any objections. And then August 9th is when they expect to have all the jury questionnaires and interviews done. And August 11th, and choose a jury. And then on August 11th, she expects for testimony in the case to begin. And then she talked about pretrial services and getting Mr. Kelly to New York. Has anything been established on that front? And AUSA Geddes stated that they had spoken with the marshals about transportation and making sure that he is in New York as close to August 9th as possible. And she stated that his counsel wanted him to stay in Chicago for as long as possible, so they can work with him on his case. And, so they don't want him transported until it's absolutely capable, absolutely required that he be in New York, and that the marshals were in agreement with that, and they said that they would work out a schedule to ensure that he is there on trial. And then Judge Donnelly spoke up and stated that the final status hearing before the trial actually starts is going to be in person, and she wants Mr. Kelly to be there, and she expects that hearing will take place a week before the actual trial starts. So it is important that he is in New York in time for that. And Ms. Geddes basically said that they will ensure that he is there at least a day before that pretrial hearing takes place. And then they went on to talk about a motion regarding the questionnaire, and I was going to do a video, and I probably still will, I just haven't had the time, on changes that the defense has submitted regarding the questionnaire. And so they were basically saying that they had gone over the questionnaire and the request, and that a lot of the things that the government not that the government wanted, but what the defense wanted, they were in agreement, but there was a couple of other things that they were not in agreement with. And I guess they were preparing a response, but now that all of this upheaval has taken place with the council, they are not sure if they should submit their responses or if they should hold off, or who they should submit those answers to. And that the council's request that the questionnaires be returned early from the jurors, that they had never seen that before. The judge said she had never seen a request like that, and the prosecutor said they hadn't either, but they were okay with, conceding and doing whatever it is that Mr. Kelly's defense team wants. And so Judge Donnelly was basically like, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn. And then at that moment, Greenberg said he had something to say, and then he went on to, trying to butter up to the prosecutors, basically telling them that it was a joy to work with them. They were very professional, blah, 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 blah. Then Nicole spoke up, and this is where I started to question, her capabilities of handling this case, because then she started asking the judge about submitting motions. And then the judge was like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Like, you can submit a motion whenever you want to submit a motion. But I think maybe she was saying, as the lead counsel, is it okay that since Mr. Kelly wants to let his lead counsel, as we know them, go, is it okay for her, presumably being the new lead counsel, to start filing motions? Now, that's what I interpreted she was trying to say, because I'm trying to give her some grace here. But the judge said that basically they can file the motions and they'll figure, everything out at that point. And then Elizabeth Geddes made another comment where they were talking about, this questionnaire again. And let's see. And that was pretty much it. Judge Donnelly basically did not want to have this conversation on this call with 150 70 plus people listening in. I don't think there's ever been a call where there was that many people on the line. And so she wanted to squash it. She wanted everything to be professionally done, no bickering back and forth in her courtroom. She wants them to put everything in writing, outline their grievances and their concerns, and get that information to her. And you guys know, as soon as that is on Pacer, I will download it and bring it to you if it is not sealed, because I think it's going to be some dirt being dished in that motions that they are going to file. But once again, status hearing, we didn't learn much other than there is a lot of animosity going on. There's a lot of hitting below the belt. And I'm not feeling 100% confident with Nicole and Thomas, but it could be because, you know, they're still emotional at this moment. They're trying to do what Mr. Kelly is asking them to do. And so we are just going to have to wait and see how this all plays out. And one last thing I want to add is that someone had come, you know, people were thinking that because he's changing counsel that this is going to delay the trial, that, you know, he's going to be sitting in jail for another year. And I had commented on someone's comment on my last video where I stated that the courts are under no obligation to extend a trial because the defendant wants to change counsel. And the main reason for that is it would then become a tactic to prolong somebody going on trial. And so Judge Donnelly basically confirmed that by saying that she doesn't care what they do as far as counsel, like who's going to be the lead counsel if they can't work it out or whatever, that no matter who ends up being the lead counsel on this case, she has no intentions of delaying or adjourning this case until they can work it out and get caught up to speed, that this trial is going to start on August 9th. So guys, that's it for me. Leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.